One. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Marvin Melendez. You're listening to another episode of All My Friends Talk, where I talk with all my creative artists, advocates, and just around amazing friends. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a quick shout out to Jane Marcheski, aka Nightbird. For those who've been listening to podcasts regularly, you guys heard her about 3 or 4 episodes ago talking about her cancer journey. She was told she had 6 months to live back in December, and today she announced that she is cancer-free. So big shout out to Jane. If you can, go ahead, show her some love on Instagram at Nightbird. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. For those who have been listening to this podcast since we started, from the very beginning, when I was doing this podcast with Benji, I had heard of a really cool band, and we had talked about them in our pre-trial run as far as the podcast goes. And ever since then, they've been super gracious, super friendly to me. They put out a new album last week. Without any further ado, I give you guys Jeremy Cat from the band Robertson. What's up, guys? How are you guys?
Hello.
Hi.
We're doing good.
Yo, I'm so excited you guys are here. Your album was fantastic. I have so many questions. Of all the podcasts I've done, I think this is one of the one I've been most excited to do. Only because, you guys were mentioned in my very first podcast ever. I met you guys at a show. I met Jeremy at a show that you guys did in Franklin. And you guys have always just, been super kind to me, and every time we talked. So it's fun getting a chance to actually sit down and talk with you both. So just so I can get to know you guys a little bit, how did you guys meet?
Jeremy and I met in the most cliche way, okay? At a summer camp.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
And it was,
Just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's it.
Summer camp.
So did you guys always do music together, or was that something you guys came into on your own? How'd that work out?
Yeah. So to expound on the whole summer camp thing, we in college we were part of a camp staff out on the coast of North Carolina. Super awesome. And we were on staff together playing music for middle school and high school students. And it was a Christian camp. We met leading worship, playing music together in college, I guess the summer of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are.
That's awesome. So
I guess we kind of met doing it together, but you had grown up wanting to play music in a musical household, and I did not. So in college, that was my first kind of foray into the music world. And then
okay, so Jeremy, wait, real quick. So you always wanted to do music?
Yes. That whole moment, there's some people who go back and forth with what they want to do. They have an idea of what they want to do when they're 5, then it changes when they're 8, then it changes when they're 11, then it changes when they're 14, so on and so forth. Man, 5 years old, it's so embarrassing, but it is what it is. I was listening to a Hanson cassette and a Tracy Lawrence cassette. I played the mess out of those things in my bedroom when I was 5 years old with a toy. It was so bad. With a toy plastic baseball bat that I would turn around and make it look like I'm playing guitar. And I would just sit on my bed, a 5-year-old, listening to Time Marches On by Tracy Lawrence or Mbop by Hanson.
Oh my gosh.
This is what I want to do. And it hasn't changed. And I'm 27 now. So
awesome. So for you, music's always been the vision for you. But Kat, you said it wasn't for you.
Yeah, I grew up in a really, really conservative kind of branch of Christianity, where music just wasn't really an option, I guess. And so then really once I grew up and kind of could, make my own decisions about what I believed and how God fit into all of that and stuff. That's when I was working at camp because some friends of mine had recommended it to me. I'd never sung really before, anything like that.
Really?
This is in college. And I had done choir, I guess all good church kids. But I'd never really done anything like that before. And so at the camp, my first year, that was the first time. And then I like just realized how special it was and how music can really be a tool that connects people, both in like a worship setting for sure, and also just in a really universal, like enabling people to have access to how to describe something that they wouldn't know how to otherwise. You know, kind of like music can personify feelings in a way that not a lot of other things can.
So when did you guys know that like you guys were good as musicians together?
Ooh.
Oh man, that's a great question.
Do we know that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we're 3 years into it intentionally. We're still working on. I guess, yeah. 3 years ago, we started to, we've been married for almost a year, and we were like, hey, we should start like making music together. I've always made original music since middle school, high school. I was in a blues band in college, and then kind of that transition out of college, got married to Kat. Like it just kind of naturally went to that question, hey, should we start making music together? And I would say the pursuit really started intentionally then, beginning of 2017. And I don't know, we've just learned so much in just the past 3 years. I think we keep on saying the project that we just released on July 17th, Hazel, feel like it's naturally obviously been the closest thing to quote figuring it out, because we've been doing it the longest with that project. But we feel like we definitely turned a corner in our original sound. Like for our music, the two of us, original music, we really feel like we turned a corner, turned a page, if you will, with like, what do we sound like together and how do we complement one another? We're still figuring it out, but yeah, I feel like we saw some breakthrough with this project.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember when I was driving up to Nashville, like we were moving there a year ago, that's when I first heard of you guys. I heard of you by accident, randomly. And I wound up listening to the album you guys had put out prior.
Yeah.
And then I listened to the album Hazel. And I think I was actually listening to them both today, just kind of catch up on them. And it's funny because they're both great, but they're also very different. Why, can you kind of tell me, why was there such a difference in between the albums?
Well, frankly, on the last one, that was the first time I had ever really written anything. Like before that, at that point, I guess I'd been leading worship for a while, but you're just covering other people's songs in like leading worship, right? And then, there are obviously people who write their own, but primarily that's what you're doing. And then when Jeremy and I really started to kind of like keep making music and just kind of decided to like push the envelope with where we wanted to go, I think there are a few things that impacted drastically why this one sounds so different. And one of those things is that I think we finally found where our individual styles overlap.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we've been kind of like toying around with for a long time. Like, are we the Civil Wars? Are we, if Taylor Swift and John Mayer tried to make an album together? Like, what is this, And really in the past year or two, I guess, we found a lot of bands that we both genuinely enjoyed and who were pretty much male, female fronted, like collaboratively. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then the second thing is that I had never written music before. And on this record, I wrote probably 50% the same way you did. Yeah. And so I think that probably helped give it its own voice too, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So something you guys had said when you announced the album drop was that you were worried that the album might be too honest or not honest enough. What was like, can you tell me, like, what did it mean to be like too honest? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, it's like every angsty singer-songwriter thought, right? Too honest. Oh, here we go. Press send. I think for us, we just, I mean, a lot has to do with that, the idea that we are musicians and that we love playing music. We believe, the two of us, that God has given us this gift and desire. And for the most part, the past 3 years, we've really been doing that in the lane of the church, in the lane of even creating original music for the church. But not to be too long-winded with that, I feel like something the past year, 2 years or so, both me and Kat, we've just been exploring the idea of, like, when it comes to our original music, the music that we're feeling inspired to write, does it look like music designed specifically for the local church? And what I mean by that is, like, people singing it in the context of worship and in the local gathering on Sunday morning. We really answered the question, no. We feel like the music that that we've been inspired to write the past 2 years, and where we're going with our original music, is just songs that might have some Christian themes in them, might be about our relationship, might also be about a friend of ours struggles and their trials, and a relationship that they've experienced that's gone wrong. It's all encapsulating type mentality. And I think something that we were struggling with is feeling like we were kind of stuck in one main sphere of thinking when it comes to the songs we were feeling like we were inspired and even called to write.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That does. Yeah. But do you guys, so you guys are still, like, Christians, I'm assuming, right? So that hasn't changed. But, like, but just the direction of your music is, I don't feel like necessarily that makes you unchristian. It just makes it unique. It just makes it different. And I think that's something that's undervalued amongst Christians.
I think we see ourselves as Christians who are musicians.
Yeah.
Instead of musicians who make Christian music, if that makes sense.
That does.
Like, we want our music to be like a gateway and or a table that anyone is welcome to sit at, and that we kind of get to open that up to everybody. And I don't think we'll ever stop, like, leading worship and, like, enjoying and loving those moments too, because they are, like, sacred to us. But we also wanted to create a space that's outside the walls of the church where other people can come and be filled, and who there's space for everybody there, you know?
Here's an example, or I guess an analogy. The past, like, couple of months, like, we moved from North Carolina to Tennessee. It's been awesome. We bought a house. We're, like, doing the thing. We're first-time home buyers.
Congrats.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We're learning so much. We hired a painter to paint a good portion of our house. And to use the analogy of a painter, the way that we see ourselves as musicians, it's the same idea as, like, a painter wouldn't classify themselves as a Christian painter and that they only paint for people who are Christians and who are followers of Jesus and who have been reborn and believe in the gospel, all of that. No, they're painters, and they take jobs for both the believer and also the non-believer. Same reason why we see ourselves as musicians. And that looks like writing original music and playing in lounges, playing in coffee shops, playing in restaurants, playing in bars, playing wherever we can play and get our original music out, because we're inspired by the music we're writing and we want to reach people with that music. But then on top of that, we love leading worship on Sunday morning and, like, serving our local church. So it's not it's not like we have to choose one or the other. We're doing both because we're musicians.
Gotcha.
And I feel like the past, year and a half or so, we've really just felt really empowered by that, felt really at peace that this is what we believe God is calling us to go, where God is calling us to go.
That's awesome. That's so good. To transition here, there's something I've always wanted to ask you guys. Your song, Sirens.
Yes.
Tell me about that song.
Yeah, that's probably the song that I was the one who wrote that Instagram post about are they honest enough? Are they not? Whatever. And I think that's the one that for me feels the most vulnerable, just because it is written entirely, I think, by me, and I wrote it in like 20 minutes. I'd sent the whole song to Jeremy one day. He was gone, and I'm also learning to play the piano, and that has just opened up a whole new like realm for me. So anyways, I was sitting down and just feeling like really down, I guess, and trying to process why, like turning to music to sort of like let some of those things out and unlock some of those feelings. And I think it genuinely just flowed out of me. I don't know how else to explain it other than that sometimes as a musician, it feels like all of a sudden you're singing and saying things that you've always known but never had access to.
Yeah.
And that moment can like go and be gone unless you capture it, right? And but the song, I felt like it was just about, like, for me, it is not ever, at least to date, that I ever desire at all to be married to anyone else, or not even not married to Jeremy, but more just about like the emotional turmoil of actually bearing someone else's burdens, and like the pressure that it can feel to feel like both of you are trying to carry the other one, even when things are really hard. And it feels like so much easier to just run away from it. And I had just listened to a Sarah Bareilles record where I don't remember the name of the song, but it has kind of a run in it similar to the one that we ended up putting in Sirens. So, cover my ears and tie me to the lights. That came from like a Sarah Bareilles kind of record. And it just, I don't know, for me, it was like being able to admit that, like, yeah, sometimes it is hard to like feel other people's feelings and still like want to stay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the idea that, like, when you're in a committed, lasting relationship, like there are going to be times when both of you are upset. Yeah. And sometimes it's that the other person's upset, and sometimes it's that you're the one who's upset. And like the role reversal is just constantly there. But if you're committed to the relationship, then you're committing to like making it last, you know? And like the ebb and flow of that.
That's really good. Wow. I feel like that, I don't know, I guess because me and my wife were also like, we just moved from Florida, to Florida, we have a baby on the way. So it's like everything.
Dude.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So baby's due in September. We don't have a name picked out. We're still figuring that one out. But, I relate to that so hard because, like, especially like and I'm sure you guys want this when you're moving, it's like, and there's so many emotions that are tied up, especially just being married. And you get this moment, it's like, dude, like I'm in this, no matter what happens, till death do us part, so, and I'm sure sometimes my wife looks at me, it's like, that's going to come for you soon, but
we always say married or buried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How we love it.
One day we'll probably write a song called that, but yeah.
Oh, that'd be so good. So, okay. Question. So is there any moments in the album that, like, as far as the creation process, that stick out to you the most?
Mm-hmm.
Such a good question. So we still do the story of really that song being created. The creation story of that song, to me, is one I'll remember for a lifetime. Like we had a day off, and we woke up, made coffee every morning. We make coffee together. We watch the news. We act like we're really old.
Wait, let's be clear. Technically, Jeremy makes the coffee while I finish sleeping. We
give and take.
It's
right?
the best.
Yeah. And so we had our first cup of coffee. We watched the headlines in the news, working on our second cup, and I just naturally, because I am who I am, I go to my guitar even on my day off, and I start to kind of write a guitar part inspired by Angus and Julia Stone. We were really listening to a record by them, one of their records, Snow record, during that season, and kind of just wrote this guitar part really inspired by their vibe and sound. And I got it to a place where I was like, Kat, come in here. So she comes in there. Long story short, that morning we wrote this song, and we wrote the song from start to finish by like 11 a.m. We were like, this is awesome. Let's go to lunch, go grab, like a burger, and then get back at it. So we took a lunch break at one of our favorite places in Durham, North Carolina, where we were living at the time, Gear Street Garden. If there's anyone listening right now that is in Durham, North Carolina, put everything down and go have a burger at Gear Street Garden. It is phenomenal. So we go and have lunch, and then we go back to the house and we demo the song. So we had the song written and demoed, all parts and vocals and everything by dinner that day. Wow. And it was really the first time, like, we'll be able to look back on that song and the creation of that song and say, truly, that was the first time we ever, from start to finish, created a song in our home. Like, wrote the song and demoed the song in our home, let alone in one day.
Also, like, the album was done.
Yeah.
When we wrote that.
Yep.
And so we thought it was like done. We had made decisions. We'd cut other songs to keep it like at a certain number or whatever at the time. And then we wrote that, and we were like, okay, well, I guess screw all this other stuff, like all these other rules that we've made for ourselves, because I think we both just felt like it was really special. And it has proven so far. I mean, it's like the most successful song we've ever had. So it's really cool.
And it inspired us to do it again. Hence is why Hit the Road is on the record too. Because because we were so inspired by the process of We Still Do. We about a month ago or a month later, we wrote Hit the Road in the same way, in the same process.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I love it when, like, I feel like artists just can, like, make music. I feel like that's just true, like, artistry. It's like, put your emotions, put your soul, and then everything else can kind of go. But once you have that in there, it's just good.
Yeah, we just kind of had this mentality going into the process of the record, which really started at the beginning of 2019, if not even the fall of 2018. Just this old thought mentality of what we had been doing, which is write, a handful of songs and then go into a studio with a producer and with a band and make it work for 3 days. And then what you get out of those 3 days is what you got. And I think those two songs, We Still Do and Hit the Road, really showed us that in 2020, we don't have to always do it that way. And it was really liberating, and it inspired us even more. I think it created something with our music that we had never even accessed before, which is really cool to think about.
So has that changed? Like, is there like a specific creative, like writing process you have, or that changed everything for you guys? What is like the writing process now?
I think most of our best songs seem to come I don't even know if that's true, but most of the time what's most natural for both of us is either that we write it by ourselves and bring it to the other one, whole song, and then the other one is able to like breathe into it, right? Or we try to truly co-write something because we're both in the mood to write. And then that usually ends up with Jeremy having something like a progression or a melody, like hook idea. Is that probably fair to say? Something that like really gets it started. And then most of the time I feel like I end up writing a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, I think
if we co-write. Yeah.
Just generally speaking, Kat is definitely lyric for sure. Like her strong point is her lyrical prowess. Wow. I would say my strength is more on the melody side, and like she was saying, like chord progression, structure,
arrangement,
stuff like that.
So, but I don't know if it happens hardly ever the same way, really.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. How has so COVID? How's that affected your guys' album process, the writing? Like, has it affected you guys at all as far as with this project?
I would say with COVID, on top of trying to get this project out, we've really kind of put writing on the back burner, just because our main objective for 2020 was to release Hazel. And because of that, we've had to punt the release date a couple of times. So it's just kind of elongated this whole process, let alone we moved from North Carolina to Tennessee. We've changed our whole living situation. It's just been a crazy ride the past 3 to 4 months. So we definitely, now that we are in our house, we are able to to live and sleep in our house. The next step is to set up our home studio once again, and then once we have that figured out, probably in the next month or so, that's when we'll start to hit the ground running again and start making music, which again we're really pumped for, because man, I do think looking, in the future, we're going to look back on this project, and we're going to, because of experiences like the creation of We Still Do and Hit the Road, and just what we learned in the year and a half making Hazel, we're going to look back on this season and just be like, man, we have kind of a fresh way to think about just the creation project or process of our music. So we're writing here and there, but it's for sure gonna speed up and be something that we do a lot more once we get everything into play.
That's awesome.
Don't sleep on this, because we have a few songs that hopefully we will put out in the next, I don't know, we don't really have a timetable, but we do have a few that we really, really like.
Yeah. Right now our thought is to just keep supporting the record. We had one of our close friends document the process. Just he came along to studio days, and he would come over to writing days at our house, and everything from really the beginning of 2019 all the way up till maybe February of 2020. And he just got a lot of good documentation of the whole process. So in the next couple of months, we're going to kind of be putting together little snippets of those videos, just to kind of show people who are following our music the whole process of writing the record and producing the record and recording the record there in Durham, and really specifically in our house that we lived in Durham. The title of the project is Hazel, and that's really inspired by our street. Our street was called Hazel Street. There's even a song on the record called Hazel Street. One of the first songs we wrote for the project. Just this idea, this whimsical idea of, man, like home really isn't a place. It's just who you feel most comfortable with, like wherever you're at. And for me, that's Cat. So for us, the past 2 years before Tennessee, it was Durham, North Carolina. So we wrote that song just really inspired by that idea being in the house. So
that's awesome. Last question for you guys: is there like any specific message that you guys are trying to tell with this album, or like a specific target audience that you guys have in mind?
I think probably the message is really kind of summed up in what Jeremy said, of like, I think more than ever, which is so funny because we moved, during all of this. So it just has reinforced to us that this is true. But man, our culture is so materialistic and so wrapped up in status and just so many things like that. And I think in the past 2 or 3 years, for sure, we really realized, like, no, we are the most at home, the most safe, the most whatever when we're surrounded by our people. Like, like Jeremy, like our close friends, and just, I guess, the value that building a home, if you will, the value that can really add and bring to your life. And I think, especially for people our age, that can be kind of scary too.
Yeah.
Like you're out of college, you kind of are starting over probably somewhere and trying to reestablish some of those really strong friendships. And I think we just really feel like they're worth it. Like your marriages are worth it, your friendships are worth it, your family relationships, like all those things are worth fighting for, because those are the only things that will actually like ground you, Yeah. So I think that's what the record's really about.
Awesome. Hey guys, it's such a pleasure to talk to you guys. You guys are like phenomenal. If people want to look you guys up, where can they find you guys?
Pretty much all of our stuff is at Robertson Music. It has a T in it. It's spelled just like the Duck Dynasty people, but of no known relation.
No relation. Yes.
And yeah, we're on Spotify, all the streaming platforms you can find, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and we have a website. So, and we do play a lot of weddings and stuff like that still. It's like one of our favorite things, actually. So I know a lot of that has been put on hold, but we do still love coming to do that. So
yeah, so you can connect with us, like Kat said, on social media, on Instagram at Robertson Music. Our website is www.jkrobertsonmusic.com. And like Kat said, man, right now with us being do-it-yourself musicians, indie musicians in the midst of COVID, man, following us on Spotify is probably the biggest action step for us. Just because we're in a lot of ways still new to our presence on Spotify, and it just means a lot to do-it-yourself musicians to hit that follow and to give us some streams. So you can find Spotify and Apple Music, all the things, YouTube.
It's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And for all my listeners out there, thank you so much. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I got a lot of good things, a lot of good musicians coming up soon. And I got a couple announcements on your way very soon. So be sure to be on the lookout. You can follow me on The Only Marvin GM on Instagram. And yeah, share this with your friends and be sure to give Robertson a shout out. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.